Hello, I'm Dr. Samuel Sennett, and this is Module 1 for SPED 596, Topics in SPED Research. I hope you can have a terrific time with this course. We're going to dive right in. This one's all about what is educational research and overview of the educational research process. So, like I said, I'm Dr. Samuel Sennett. I'm the director of the Universal Design Lab. I'm a newly tenured associate professor, and I get to do sabbatical all next year. I do a lot of research. I love students. I love to teach. I'm in the College of Education at Portland State University. So let's just dive right into this grant proposal. This is kind of the big surprise. Typically in this course, we write a mock proposal, research proposal, and while in my mind, it's always been such a cool chance for people to be a researcher, students have treated it, well, as an assignment. And I just decided that I learned how to do grants kind of on my own, and I got my first grant as a teacher, and then I've gone on to get grants in research. I think it's cool to do innovative things. I think it's good to try to advocate for your students. And some of these things cost money, and some of them cost time. And I believe that this is possible for teachers to ask for sponsorship for what they need. So we're going to explore this, and I think it's going to give you a real reason to do your own inquiry. And so hopefully everything you do in this course can connect to your own work as a researcher. And then I hope you actually do it. I hope you actually get sponsorship. But again, I'll say as a disclaimer, it's not required. Okay, so I want you to take a moment and think about some of the things that move you. Where do you want to go? What do you believe in education? I know you're sitting there and you believe things deeply about practices and about how to help kids. It might be that thing that you say, oh, that, Dr. Sam, that's just something I do. Well, I sat at dinner tonight with some of the best special educators in the whole world, with, each of them have 40 years of experience with kids with the most complex disabilities. And we talked about research, and we talked that they said, listen, we know how to help, but that research doesn't exist about our practices. And part of it, I really was moved in thinking about trying to help them share their special insights with the world and how to research it. Well, it doesn't have to be that big. It could be one little idea that you want to try out, or it could be something you know works and you want to just do that. So this doesn't necessarily, for your proposal, even have to be true research or experimental research. It could be something you want to try informally. Okay, so take a moment. You can pause this video. You can think about it for the next day, however you want to approach it. But where do you want to go? Now, I want you to reflect on your practice. I want you to reflect on what may be feasible for you next year or this summer. One way to do that is to use what's called design thinking. I use this in my research. I use it for problem solving with kids. It's just one way to get at innovation, to get at finding something worth pursuing. So it starts with empathizing. You can think about this as considering what your problem is or what your pain point is, but it could also be talking to people, observing them, seeing what might be needed. From that empathize step, you're going to define the need. You're going to come up with some sort of clear organizing statement about what's required. And then you may ideate or brainstorm. And this is where you can get a lot of ideas out and think about solutions. But ultimately, that should lead to creating something, some sort of prototype. And then taking whatever you've created in your prototype and testing it out. Okay, so I can share a number of resources around design thinking. You can Google search. There's a ton on the web about design thinking. Or you can take this worksheet and just think about the process on your own. Okay, so right now you're probably going, oh my gosh, Dr. Sam, you're telling me I'm going to write a grant, but how am I going to do that? I've never written a grant, or I don't know what the process is. Well, I'm going to help you organize yourself. And there's scaffolding all along the way. And my hope is that as you're learning about research, you can also learn about grants, which is how most people do research, whether it be action research in a classroom or big scientifically controlled studies. Okay, so how are we going to do that? Well, I've worked from this foolproof research proposal template, and I've adapted this. This is the actual one that I've worked from, but I've got this process I've developed, and I really am confident that it's going to work for you. Okay, so here's kind of the fun part. This is not required again. That's the disclaimer. We're not saying you have to, solicit funding, but there are paths to sponsorship for your project and that are feasible. Okay, so 3 different doors, if you will. Door number 1 is you could use a crowdfunding tool such as Donors Choose. Door number 2 is you could get a traditional grant, which you could find on Get Ed funding. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that, but you could just go on there and start searching too. And then the third item is pretty creative, but you may frequent a business, you may go to some entity like your bank and hand in your proposal and see if they'll fund it. Okay, so I want to clarify that the master's core courses, this is SPED 596, it's called a few different things, but it's basically research and special education. This class is called Topics in Research and Special Education. But the gist of it is that this grant proposal is different and separate. It's on your own. It's not the research project that you're going to do for your master's core. And so I just want to make that clear, that this isn't coordinated with the other projects. But it could be. You could talk to those folks and see if you could work your project that you do for this class into that. I can't speak to those or for those folks. So okay, not to go too on about that, but I want you to know that the master's core, and this may be review for many people, is made up of these 3 courses. The first one's this. This is your intro. And then there's 2 linked classes, SPED 597 and SPED 506. I think you know about that, but I just wanted to remind you that that's the process you're in. The typical projects, and the one this year is Mount Hood Kiwanis Camp, and go team for who's going up there. It's always invaluable. And then this next project, there's just going to be one additional class, if you will. It's going to be inclusive practices for students and young adults with disabilities with Julia Esparza Brown and Mary Morningstar, and a PBIS component with Dr. Sheldon Lohman. So each of those faculty are going to contribute to this, and people will sign up to work with each of them inside of one class. Okay, so those are the master's projects. That's the master's core. And D2L. So we're going to use D2L. I want you to think about this as a filing cabinet. It's a way to access course materials and turn in assignments. And then in addition to D2L, which many of you are pretty familiar with, we're also going to use Slack. Now, I would not subject you to the D2L discussion forums and such. There's nothing wrong with them per se, but I just, they're very hard to use, and it's just very tricky. So no offense if you've had to use these or you use these currently, but I met with the provost in the last few weeks, and everybody in higher ed's really excited about finding deeper ways for engagement and integration. Slack is one approach. So Slack is white hot in software development and business and hospital networks. I think it could be a really valuable tool in education or something like Slack. So we're going to try it out. So far, every time we've used it, students have raved about it, and it is what you put into it. So try to use it, be generous with your classmates, and have some fun. Engage with each other. Okay, so we've got D2L, we've got Slack. Well, we're going to write this proposal. That's cool, Dr. Sam, but tell me more. What's this class all about? Well, okay. The gist of the lesson is I want you to understand the scientific method as applied to education. And you're like, scientific method, wait, I learned that in middle school and high school and college. Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. Take that knowledge and run with it. Scientific method, observation, asking questions, making hypotheses, conducting tests or experiments, and analyzing that data, and then drawing conclusions. Well, that cycle that we have in our beautiful text from Mertler 2019 is basically that process. It's a complete parallel. And we're going to study this cycle all 8 weeks of the term. And you basically start with identifying these problems or research questions, or excuse me, identifying research problems and turning them into these inquiries, looking at literature and people who have studied this in the past, and developing a methodology or a plan, implementing that plan, analyzing your data, and then iterating and reporting on your data. So perfect parallel. It's going to be terrific to show you this process in all different ways, such as this balance of quantitative studies and qualitative. It's just so great to help you with this survey, and we can discuss it. One of the key parts is to learn these terms, these special education research terms, and we're going to geek out. It's going to be great. So I want you to get real fluent with those terms. We're going to be talking about them, some in this module, and then some over each week. We'll introduce new terms, and there's going to be some great practice opportunities, but you're going to have an exam, but I really want you to just focus on read the chapter really well, engage with these modules. You'll be totally fine. You're going to master all these terms. You're going to know which terms you have to learn. Terms like validity and reliability, statistics and research. Okay, so now I want you to dive in, and I'm serious about that. So I'm introducing the grant, but I want to give you this tool right away. Now, some of you may already have used this or know about it. This is an activity that you have to do to complete the module. So I want you to get yourself organized using this tool, Zotero. Now, you can find an alternative, but I strongly suggest using Zotero because it's free and open source, and it works really well. So I recorded a little video tutorial. You can please watch that. What that does is shows you how to use Google Scholar and Zotero. Now, you're going to be so pleasantly surprised at what this can do, and I won't spoil the full surprise of the video, but the gist of it is that you can find research articles online, grab them quickly and import them into Zotero, and then rapidly turn them into APA citations. So I hope that's helpful, and I want you to dive right in. I want you to take an area that you may want to do your proposal on, and I want you to use Google Scholar and Zotero to organize yourself, and then I want you to post 2 APA article references to the proposal assignment channel on Slack. And so that should be straightforward. It's step 1. Get Zotero running on your machine. You can run it in Chrome. You can run it on your computer. You're going to have to follow the documentation for that. It's on the Zotero website. And then you're going to go on Google Scholar. You're going to run a keyword search for the topic you're interested in. And then you're going to find a couple citations and learn how to import them. So you can watch that video tutorial that I made, and that's the challenge. So I want you to get using that right away, so as you find articles you can seamlessly organize them. I hope this helps you with your other classes if you have to do any kind of term papers or research. Okay, so have fun with that. I can't wait to see the first parts of your topics. Okay, so without further ado, there's 2 short video lectures. You can sit back and take them in on these 2 topics. And I'll see you in Module 2 or online on Slack.